HR issues can kill you. One complaint against your company can turn your world upside down. And you spend way too much time dealing with HR when you should be spending your time on making a profit. You should talk to Bambee. With Bambee, get access to your own dedicated US-based HR manager starting at just $99 per month. They get to know you and your business while providing HR expertise and the personal touch you need and want. They're available by phone, email, and real-time chat, so onboarding and terminations run smoothly. Team members reach peak performance, and your business stays compliant with changing HR regulations. And with Bambee's HR Autopilot, you'll automate important HR practices like setting policies, training, and feedback. HR managers can easily cost $80,000 a year, but Bambee starts at $99 per month. Schedule your free conversation today to see how much Bambee can take off your plate. Go to Bambee.com right now and type in Accelerate under podcast when you sign up. It'll really help the show. Spelled BAM, BEE.com. Bambee.com. Type in Accelerate. Welcome to Accelerate Your Business Growth, where we're exploring all sorts of business topics. Experts from around the world join me, your host, Diane Helbig, for a conversation where they share their expertise with all of you. Take what you need when you need it. Featured on Inc.com, Forbes, and MSNBC's Your Business, this podcast is recognized as one of the best podcasts for small business, sales, leadership, social media, and more. When it comes to business, Accelerate Your Business Growth has got it covered. And now on with the show. My guest today is Dr. Stephen Timme. Stephen is the founder and president of Finlistics Solutions. He's also the co-author of the Amazon bestseller, Insight-Led Selling: Adopt an Executive Mindset, Build Credibility, Communicate with Impact. Before founding Finlistics, Stephen was a professor of finance at Emory University and several other universities. Thanks so much for joining me today, Stephen.
Thanks, Diane, and thanks for everyone listening.
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually want to start with, I was reading the introduction to your book, and I love this part where you've got the solution, and then the salesperson should be more interested in learning about my business instead of telling me about theirs. And that just hit me like a ton of bricks, because I feel like that's one of the biggest mistakes salespeople make and have been making for quite a while, is that they think they're supposed to be the ones talking and telling and persuading and all of those things.
Yeah, so I believe that was a quote from Dean Myers. He was a former exec at Coke. And in the book, we interviewed a dozen executives from all kinds of companies, large, small, et cetera. And that was one of the common themes, like, hey, you should be more interested in me than your company and your solutions, because you're the one that's asking me to spend my money. And Diane, the other part of that is, I've worked with a lot of executives over the last 30 years, and they really want partners, right? They really don't want vendors. They want partners, and to be partners, like in personal relationships, you have to be as interested in the other person than you're as much as yourself. And that's some of the feedback we get is, they don't understand my business. They don't really care about what I'm trying to get accomplished personally, on and on and on. So that was one of the motivations for writing the book, is really to provide a framework to help enterprise sellers say, hey, how do you get inside the mind of this buyer who really, really wants to be your partner?
Yeah, definitely. So talk to me some about what you think sellers can do to adopt that executive mindset that you talk about.
Yeah, one is to understand how executives make decisions, and that's why it's important to really fall in love with your customer and say, what something as simple, Diane, is, if they're publicly traded, in their annual report, what is the CEO chairman, what is the letter to shareholders talking about, right? I mean, they'll talk about, a lot of like ESG as an example, and they'll talk about community and those things that are important, but they also give you a lot of insights into, I'm trying to think, the one I saw just the other day, they were saying, okay, what we're trying to do is grow revenues, and how we're going to do that is enhance the customer experience. And here's some of our strategies for doing this. We also want to expand our profit margins, and here are the things that we're going to do. So, I mean, really, Diane, in, I don't know, less than 10 minutes, you can start seeing what is happening at the top, and that cascade down from the very top to, all other parts of the organization. So see what's most important to the executives, and like I said, that trickles down to other parts of the organization, and it's out there in the public domain. And if it's a private company, there's what I find, there's a pretty high correlation between what public companies have as goals and strategies, and then what private companies do. Because I don't know, Diane, maybe they all use the same consultants. I don't know.
They might be. I don't know. But I love that. I never would have thought about reading the letter to investors. That is because they spell out
They do
their goals, everything right there.
Yeah, it's real simple. And the other thing that you can do is, and this is getting a little bit more detail, but my friends out there, it's something that is expected of you, because we've in these interviews, and again, working with execs, I mean, knowing their financial performance and knowing their goals and their strategies is table stakes. You're really not going to impress anyone by knowing that. I mean, if you don't know it, it's going to be very short meeting. But Diane, where I was going with this is, if see what's happening, right? So, for example, the consumer products company, I won't name the name, but you probably buy their toothpaste. Anyway, so you saw their revenues went up. Okay, the revenues went up. Well, let's see what could have happened. Go to the annual report or quarterly report, doesn't really matter, and go to what we call the management discussion and analysis, and they'll tell you here's what happened. So in this particular example, they said, oh, our revenues went up 6%, whatever the number was. And this much of it was because we sold more volume. This much of it was because we increased prices. This much of it is because of, foreign exchange. So the point I'm making here is that they spell it out, and it's usually pretty straightforward. So, volume went up, prices went up. Oh, I wonder how much longer they can raise prices, right? And they got hurt by foreign exchange. So it doesn't take that long, really, Diane, to say, what are they up to? What's been impacting their performance and where they want to go. And if you do that, you're really going to stand out, because, there was a study, I believe by Forrester, that said a lot of executive buyers think that like 80% of enterprise sellers do not understand their business. And, I'm not saying it's not some work, but it's not as hard as you think to get in that 20% that they say, oh, we do think they understand our business.
Not only that, but what I always say is that there's activity and productivity. And so you can spend your time dialing for dollars, or you can spend your time researching your prospect so that you have something intelligent to talk to them about when you actually do reach out, right? And that's what you're talking about. Do the work.
Yeah, exactly. Because I mean, like I said, it's expected of the sellers. If you want me to spend some of my precious time talking to you, and they are not going to hold an extra meeting that week to talk to you, that means you're bumping somebody else. You better be prepared. And that was one of the reasons why Melody Ashley, who is our CRO, we know all the sad statistics, they believe 80% of sellers don't understand their business, and only 60% make quota. It's depressing. And these are our friends. So we're like, look, we've been on both sides of the desk. We've got insights from both sides of the desk. Let's write almost like a guide or a handbook on how to develop these insights to be more relevant and to build these partnerships.
Yeah, it's so great. And I just find it fascinating because it's things I wouldn't have thought of. But then when you explain it, it makes perfect sense. I do have a question about the financial performance when it comes to privately held companies. Is it possible to find any of that?
Typically not. I mean,
Yeah.
one of the things that we do is provide financial performance insights on publicly traded companies to help sellers. But then everyone's saying, well, what about private companies? Well, here's the reality of it. Most of the private company stuff we've looked at is not, it's not very accurate. It's not very detailed. So what we recommend people do, you can do a couple of things. One, there are some industry statistics out there, so for example, retail went up. In fact, they just announced it, retail sales went up 4.8% or whatever it was, or for fiscal year 2021, sales in this industry went up this, and profit margins expanded or profit margins went down. So Diane, one thing you can do is, let's say you're the exec I'm talking to at this private company. I'd say, Diane, in preparation, we typically look at how you're doing financially, so we have better insights. But you're private, so we couldn't get that information. But I did look at some of your companies in your industry, and I saw their revenues went up last year by X%, and I saw that their profit margin shrank a little bit, and they talked about increased labor costs. Are you experiencing the same thing? So Diane, what you can do is just be straightforward and say, look, here's where I look to get some insight to what you might be doing. Can I ask you a few questions about how you're doing financially? And then the transition is, and Diane, here's what I see in the industry, what people are doing to improve performance in those areas. Are you doing the same thing? So it's really not that hard. In fact, here's what's funny, Diane. Some of the folks that use our tool, our platform, will say, hey, it's actually easier to talk to a private company because I'm only using industry data versus their specific information, where they might start questioning, well, where'd you get that? And we have a little bit different number and everything else. So private companies they're actually kind of easier to sell to.
That's interesting. That's very interesting. I had a question about executive compensation, because there's a lot of things in the news, especially not necessarily in the news, but sort of in the whatever sphere out there, especially right now about
Meta.
Yeah, in Meta, right? About how prices are going up, but and companies are saying it's because labor costs are going up, but executives are compensated so unbelievably high that it's not necessarily believable. So, how is knowing how an executive is compensated part of that adopt an executive mindset, and how does the seller use that information?
Yeah, great question. And let's not get into the level of compensation for executives. I mean, I can see both sides of that anyway.
Sure.
Plus, a lot of executives are my friends, so I don't want to irritate any of them. So here's how this works. First of all, I mean, people are let's say people are motivated by money. I'm not saying they're not motivated by other things, but more is preferred to less. I mean, let's just get it. And so what you also find is we do surveys all the time. And what we find is only 10% of enterprise sellers in this sample consistently use executive compensation to have a better conversation. So, wow. I mean, again, this stuff's out there in the public domain. So here's how you can use it, right? So now I know, Diane, you're like a chief marketing officer as an example, or you're a CIO, it really doesn't matter. And, I know what your company's goals are, they're to expand profitability, it's to grow at this rate. But the executive comp, let's say, is that your executive compensation is based upon, the level of revenues and profit margins and earnings per share. Okay. Yeah. Now, I'm not going to come up to you and say, Diane, unless I know you pretty well, I'm not going to say, oh, Diane, I know how you're compensated on sales and, earnings per share and profit margin. And, and I know where your kids go to school, that kind of stuff. That's just kind of creepy. So how you can use this is you now know what's motivating them. And so you might have a conversation, say, Diane, one of the things that we're here to do is help you achieve your goals and strategies, and ultimately, improve your financial performance in areas like revenues and profit margins and earnings per share. So now they know that And as you're having these conversations, keep getting back to, oh, and let me share with you how our solutions, given your goals, can help you improve profit margins. Okay. I'm putting together a proposal. Diane, you want greater customer insights, and here's how we've helped others. And, here's what we think the benefits would be around revenues. And, oh, here's how it would also help profit margins. So it's a way to connect with these executives who, believe me, I've worked with a lot of them. Executive compensation is pretty high up there. So it's just a way of being more relevant.
Yeah, that's interesting. I like that. That's really valuable information on how to use the information that you're gathering so that they know that you're educated about them, but you're not, going places that are uncomfortable.
I call it creepy.
Yeah, it's truly right. It's like being stalked, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And what's involved in build credibility?
Okay, so the build credibility is now what you're talking about is, how do you know the industry? That's a big part of build credibility. I mean, there's other things involved in it, but let's face it, a customer's industry is one of the biggest drivers of their performance. And there's some exceptions to the rule, like, Tesla is an example, and Amazon. And so you can find the disruptors out there. So what build credibility about is, well, what's happening in the industry? And, I tell people all the time, and let me back up again, we do surveys, and, I'm not saying be an industry expert, Diane, but what we found is only about 25% of, sellers really think they know their industry, because one of the things that we found talking to these executives is, tell me something I don't know. And a lot of times that's coming from the seller's industry knowledge. So what I tell folks is, fall in love with the industry. I was talking to a sales friend of mine, I think it was last week, and him and I are both car nuts. And we were talking about this. You've got to be passionate about your customer's industry. You have to love your customer's industry. And we said, you know what? We would be great sellers in the car, automotive industry, because we love cars, And so the first thing is fall in love with the customer's industry. And then here's the breakdown, Diana, what you need to know. How are they doing financially? Okay. So in fact, I was doing some research earlier this morning. And so one of our customers' revenue grew at like 3 or 4%. The industry average grew at 6%. So it's like, well, wait a minute, what's different about this individual customer, because its growth is so much different than the industry. So you can start digging into that. The other parts of that is, well, what are the business and technology trends, right? I mean, what are the disruptors out there? How are they leveraging some of these technology trends? Are they not leveraging it? Have you seen other companies in their industry leverage them in a different way? So this allows you, given you get to see a lot of companies in that industry, to tell them something they don't know. And then the last part of that is, what are the industry risks? And what I find is that a lot of my friends in sales, I always accuse them of having happy faces, right? Everything's always happy, and our solutions are going to give you a 300 or 500% ROI, and on and on and on. Well, what are the risks out there? What are the disruptors, and how can you help them mitigate the risk? You're never going to get rid of the risk, but you manage the risk. How can you help them mitigate the risk? How do your solutions do that? So really, there's a couple points where, how's the industry doing? What are the business tech trends? What are the risks? And then ultimately, what can you do at an industry level, high level, help companies meet goals and strategies and improve their performance?
And that is really just points back to what you said earlier about how companies want partners, not vendors.
Yeah. And, Diane, I'll add to that. This is a team effort. This is not like, field sales, hey, go out and acquire all this industry knowledge. I mean, this is truly, Diane, think of all the folks involved. Definitely sales enablement. In fact, I've got these soccer cards, you got the green, the yellow and the red, and I'm always throwing a yell at my friends in sales enablement going, wait a minute, you guys aren't doing your job.
Yeah.
there should be these great industry playbooks. And what we did recently, we did a webinar on industry playbooks, and I'm trying to think of the statistics, but it was something like around 5% said their industry playbooks were excellent. I think it was like 30-something% responded, what playbooks? And then the rest, I think it's around 60-something% said, they're making progress. So the point around the industry, developing this industry playbook, you got sales enablement involved, you got the industry experts involved, you got the value consultants involved, you got sellers involved, what are they hearing? And then, it needs to be sales enablement and sales leaders to really have that ongoing nourishment with our friends in the field, and the friends in the field sharing what they're finding each other. But it's well worth it. And it's a great way to, as I said, tell a buyer something they don't know.
Right.
This episode is brought to you by Klaviyo, the platform that powers smarter digital relationships. With Klaviyo, you can activate all your customer data in real time, connect seamlessly with your customers across all channels, guide your marketing strategy with AI-powered insights, recommendations, and automated assistance. Deliver experiences that feel individually designed at scale and grow your business faster. Power smarter digital relationships with Klaviyo. Learn more at klaviyo.com/Spotify. That's KLAVIYO.com/Spotify.
Greetings from Evergreen Podcasts. We're rolling out a listener survey, and we want to hear from you. The information in the survey will help us gather statistics and in turn make our shows more appealing to advertisers. I know most people don't like ads, but this is one of the only ways our shows make money and help keep their lights on. We promise it will only take a few minutes, but the impact on our podcasts will be tremendous. As a token of our appreciation, we'll randomly select one lucky participant each month to win an exclusive merchandise package from Evergreen Podcasts. Head to evergreenpodcast.com/listener survey to help a show and possibly get some free stuff for doing so. We can't thank you enough for the support. Now back to the show.
Wow, this is so fascinating. And now talk to me about what is communicate with impact. It feels like you've already shared some of that with how you use the information, how you bring up the information that but is there more involved with that?
Yeah. So now you've got a lot of the foundation, right? But, Diane, as these buying groups are getting larger and larger. I think Gartner it said it's now over 10 major stakeholders in some of these larger, decisions like digital transformation or a lot of different things. So you got a lot of different stakeholders. And let me give a retail example. So, a lot of retailers are saying, we want to grow revenues by providing a differentiated omni-channel experience. Okay. So now let's start thinking who's involved. Oh, well, let's see, merchandising's involved, marketing's involved, distribution and logistics is involved. If they got brick and mortar stores, you've got, VP of store operations involved. And then of course you always have finance types like me. So everyone's aligned with this goal, grow revenues by providing a differentiated omni-channel experience. But I just named 5 easily major stakeholders, not to mention HR and others, IT as an example. So even though they're all aligned with the same goals, I've got different initiatives. So in that example, distribution and logistics saying, wow, how do we ensure same day overnight delivery? So they're really focused on, okay, how do we, do our network such that, someone, Diane orders, flashlight, whatever you order. And tomorrow she wants it there. She wants it there by 6 o'clock tomorrow. So I'm all focused on that. And I'm going to be looking at things like, on-time deliveries, or what they call the perfect order, or fill rates, and, those damages, returns. But I'm aligned with that goal, right? And then you're in marketing and you're thinking, how do I provide more personalized offerings? And what is the campaign response rate? So if I do something like sell customer insight solutions, how I talk to you is going to be different than how I talk to the VP of distribution and logistics. All aligned with the same goal, right? Have different maybe strategies and initiatives, but I've got to tailor the message. So that's one part of communicating with impact. And by the way, these buying groups are much further down the buying journey. So I got to be talking to you in their language pretty quickly. So that's one part. Another part is they want to know, well, what are the financial benefits? And that's why it's important early on not to make a promise, but say, Diane, you're focused on campaign response rate, and we have some industry data, and for a company your size, each 1% improvement would be worth 50 million. Does that sound about right? So tailoring the message, talking to them in their language, trying to give them some financial insights, benefits, early on is about the communicating with impact, and then, building the formal business case eventually.
Right. Boy, I sure can see how it is a team making sure that everyone, at the vendor company has as much information about the industry they're selling to as possible, because wow, you need to, there's a lot of moving parts.
There are. And I'm not going to tell anyone that this is easy. It takes work. It's a team effort, but I can tell you that is definitely scalable. Right. And that I've seen the return on these things to be pretty significant, because you're talking these buyers' languages, and most people, and in fact, here's another survey result, is we asked the question is, how well do you tailor the message for individual buyers? Okay. Like the examples they just said, 25%. So there's always that 25%. And I think it was something like, I can't remember, Diane, exactly, like 40% said progress has been made. And the other, I think it's 30-something% said, oh, we still sell on features and function. Who cares about that? So, I mean, like, I don't care. I'm an executive. You think I really care? Go talk to the IT folks. That's what gets them excited, right?
Yeah.
So, what I recommend, Diane, is pick a couple of your key industries, pick a couple of the key goals and strategies in that industry, come up with the how statements. Don't jump into the numbers right away. Pick a couple of your existing key buyers. And when I tell folks all the time, look for another buyer. I can't tell you how many times, Diane, when we encourage people to do this, we teach people to do this, like, oh my God, I never thought about talking to store operations, but we can help them. So, don't boil the ocean, but say, here's who we typically talk to. How do we tailor a message for them? And I always push people, go find one more buying center that you've not talked to, maybe never talked to, use your existing contacts to get to them and make your contacts there the hero. Hey, here's how we think we can help store operations. Will you go with us and you can share with them how we think we can help them? So I always encourage them, not think outside the box. I don't like that term, but go find another buyer, and you're going to be really surprised the response, and you're going to be surprised at the increased deal size, which we see a lot, because there's things they want to buy that maybe marketing isn't buying.
Right. It's always so interesting to me how people get so, I guess, like tunnel vision about, this is who I sell to, this is what I sell them, this is why it matters. And they don't even stop. And then I'm just going to go look at the next one, and they don't stop and think, wow, there are potentially other opportunities, but I got to make sure that I really know what's going on with them. What are their initiatives? What are their goals?
Yeah.
What are their challenges? All of these things, because the more I understand them, the more I can connect dots and either bring in a resource that I don't have, to introduce them to a resource that has nothing to do with what I do, or say, well, that's something we can do. I think we expect them to know all the things we do, and they don't care.
No. And Diane, you bring up a great point, right? Because it may be like, I feel really good about, talking about marketing or customer insights. And now those same insights can help someone in store operations or help someone in distribution and logistics. So a really good approach I've seen is within the seller's organization. Hey, who here can speak like a VP of store operations? Oh, we have a retail store solution. Love to go talk to him. So, so leverage those relationships if you within the company,
right.
Make them the hero, right? They're not just going to do it out of the goodness of their heart. At least that's what I find. And then, help build those relationships within your own company. And, I can't guarantee anything, Diane, but I can tell you, I've seen it too many times where all of a sudden, wow, store ops, what they've been, they're focused on this grow revenues, but you know what? Now you have buy online, pick up in store. They're having a tougher time managing labor, right? The scheduling of labor.
Yeah.
Oh, look, we've got this labor scheduling solution. And next thing you know, you're finding out more needs within the company and you're selling more. I can't guarantee it, but I've seen it plenty of times.
Sure. Right. Exactly. And why not just have that level of interest in doing it, right? Just that sort of curiosity.
Yeah, it's falling in love with the customer.
Yeah.
I want to know everything about you. How can we build our relationship? How can I help you? And let's be honest, talking to the execs is what is it you want as a buyer? Look, I know what your goals are. Here's mine. And this is what I find. They really want sellers to be successful because they don't want a new face, every 12 months.
Yeah.
They want someone that will know them well enough. In fact, here's a really good example, Diane. This was a good friend of mine, very senior person at this technology company. She specialized in retail. And she called me all excited one time. She said, Stephen, I'm a trusted advisor. And I'm like, what do you mean? She goes, the CEO, and she was very good talking to the execs. The CEO of this retail company called me and said, look, confidential. She didn't tell me the name. We're interested in buying this company and tell me what are your thoughts around it? Wow. So he didn't want to buy anything from her. She wasn't trying to sell him anything, but that's an extreme example. But the point I'm making is that by building relationships like that, and okay, they're the go-to source for information, you're going to get calls or say, hey, Diane, you got 5 minutes. I've been thinking about something. I just like your feedback.
Seriously. Then you're, it's so amazing, right? And it's not that hard to do. But as you said, you have to fall in love with your clients. You have to really be interested in them, genuinely interested in them. You can't, sort of walk through some scripted process and expect it to work.
Not nowadays.
No. Mm-mm. And thank goodness, right? Oh my gosh, Stephen, I love this information. It's so refreshing and just real and empowering. I mean, for people, I really hope people are listening to these concepts of how to really engage with your customer, with your prospect in a way that builds that trust and that credibility and that connectedness. So, and partnership, so that they value what you're bringing to the table because they know you care about them.
Yes. It's like a personal relationship.
Yeah.
You want to have a relationship.
Right.
And so no, that's why, Diane, the book, each chapter it's like a guide. I mean, that's really what it's like. It's like a handbook.
Yeah.
And we got lots of examples and download templates and all that. In fact, for your listeners out there, Diane, if they reach out to us, info@finlistics.com. And again, it's info@finlistics.com. And please let us know that you were listening to the Accelerate Your Business Growth. We will send them a complimentary copy of the first chapter, which is, executive insights. And we're not going to bug you to death. Like, hey, you got this. Now let's keep trying to sell you something. That's not our style, but love for people just to look at this. And that's one of the reasons why Melody and I wrote this. And, the other part of it too, Diane, I even though I left the university many years ago, there's still that professor in me that, knowledge will set you free. So if I can impart knowledge upon you and share with you things that I've seen from both sides of the desk, hopefully it'll make your life better. And that will make me feel better.
Yeah, definitely. I know. I just love it. And so first of all, thank you so much for spending this time with me and sharing this information. It really is.
My pleasure. Thanks for asking me. And thanks again for everyone listening.
Absolutely. And will you explain what the Finlistics solution is and,
Sure.
that? Thanks.
Yeah. So here's the problem that we solve. So I always like to start off with, what's the problem? And so enterprise sellers, the most common things is we want to call higher. We want to call on different buying groups. We want to be more relevant. So what we do is really a couple things. So one, we have a revenue intelligence platform called Client IQ. And what it allows you to do for literally tens of thousands of companies around the world, I can very quickly go in and say, oh, well, I'm calling on Colgate-Palmolive, and I help them grow revenues, or let's say I help them better manage their cost of goods sold through automation or something. So it very quickly says, well, here's the metrics that you can help them with. Oh, look, it's actually gone up over the last year. That's pretty a good thing, but their competitors went up faster. Okay. Or margins shrunk, but didn't shrink as rest as everyone else. So very, very quickly, it gives them some insights into what's going on financially. Keep it high level. We're not trying to get people MBAs in finance. What it'll also do is say, within this industry, here are some of the most common goals and strategies, right? And, you sell customer insights, you probably want to go talk to marketing. And within this industry, here are the initiatives and the operational KPIs that people are looking at. Which one of these can you impact? And then another part, Diane, will say, okay, well, we don't have, let's say, Colgate-Palmolive's actual cross-sell, upsell numbers. We have some industry averages. So again, you sell customer insight solutions. We'll say, well, for each 1% improvement in cross-sell, upsell for them, or new customers for them, whatever it might be, it's worth this many millions of dollars. And by the way, here's how your solutions do that. So one, Client IQ allows them to, within a matter of minutes, to get insights, which would take them hours, which is why most people don't do this. And then a second part of this is, I'm so blessed to have this bench of former executives from, like IBM, Procter & Gamble, and it goes on and on and on. And what we then do is say, okay, how do you talk to executives? Because even if you got all this great knowledge, right? Well, how do you communicate in such a way that makes you relevant? So those are the two big things that we do. There's some others, but those are the ones that help sellers call higher, call on different people, be more relevant, be more confident, and we can demonstrate, sell more.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Sounds like a great program and tremendously valuable. And how people can get in touch with you. I know you said info@finlistics.com and mentioned the show, but is there anything else the listeners should know about, you and the company?
Yeah, sure. So one thing you can also do is go to finlistics.com, and you can read about all the stuff we do. That's cool stuff. But we have a resource section where we talk about a lot of is what we call insights from the other side of the desk. It's free. We're not going to bug you. So go in there and, what are executives talking about? Or you mentioned earlier about selling to private companies. Well, I think it was 2 months ago, I had a webinar with, what's his name? Robert Bagley. That's his name. And Robert is a VP of sales enablement at HMTX, which is about an $800-something million private company. So we talk about, how do you sell to a private company? So there's a lot of good information out there that's available on, like, the topics we talked about as an example, and a lot of other topics. What they can also do is follow me on LinkedIn, because I'm always posting something. Here's a new webinar. Here's some food for thought. And then also follow finlistics.com. So reach out to either me through info@finlistics, or go to the website, get a lot of freebies, and then follow both me and Finlistics on LinkedIn.
Excellent. Great. I'll make sure all that information is in the show notes as well.
Okay.
Wonderful. Well, like I said, thank you. Listeners, thank you. You are who we're doing this for. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Accelerate Your Business Growth, a production of Evergreen Podcasts. Discover more episodes of this podcast and explore others at evergreenpodcast.com. As always, continue to prosper and be curious. And if you're looking to get your sales strategy headed in the right direction, pick up a copy of Succeed Without Selling on Amazon or wherever books are sold. Until we meet again on another episode of Accelerate Your Business Growth, goodbye and good day.
Coming up on 5 Minute News, I'm Anthony Davis. you might think it's partisan because maybe it's critical of one side or the other, but it's not. It's just the truth. And I think that's also something that's kind of unusual for Americans listening to the radio or to podcasts, because the news landscape in the States has been so partisan for so many decades. So 5 Minute News is verified, truthful, independent, unbiased, and essential world news daily.